And now I'd like to introduce another one of my colleagues, Stephanie Travers, who has a background and brings to the table a planning and doctrine strength to our work here in CISA. And Stephanie, I'll turn it over to you to talk to the audience a little bit about yourself, and then how you got to your position here currently in Homeland Security CISA.
So I was already in college with a declared major and working full-time on 9/11. So national security hadn't really been on my radar until then. I come from a military family and was much more familiar with the mission space of national defense. And from moving around a lot, I really valued how important civic and nonprofit efforts were to individual communities. So I spent the first half of my career centered around that arena. It wasn't until I moved to DC and had more exposure to the federal government efforts that I started to understand more of how the same kind of public service edict I had for myself was so incredibly applicable to Homeland Security. It ended up being some of my technical skills that I had rather than education or subject matter expertise that provided me the opportunity that I have here in my position at the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. And I say this specifically so that anyone who thinks that they, missed the boat to enter our mission space knows that that isn't true. My ability to research, write, and actually use SharePoint at the time is what brought me into the Department of Homeland Security. So not a particular course of study or position in emergency management or defense per se. I have been working for the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency since 2011, first as a contractor, and then for the past 4 years now as a federal employee. I was introduced to our important mission at first as a continuity of operations and emergency preparedness subject matter expert before I broadened my involvement to include reviewing risk analyses of major metropolitan areas, facilitating operations planning within the agency, and even representing the agency on interagency and international contingency planning efforts. I supported the national response to disasters like Hurricane Sandy, and then I scoped down a bit to run management and program analyses of our partnerships efforts, within and among the sectors our nation defines as critical infrastructure. So currently, Sue, as you indicated, I'm applying that near decade of experience that I've accumulated as a federal lead on the public-private partnership effort to update national doctrine, the National Infrastructure Protection Plan.
And going back to the question, Stephanie, can you tell our listeners a little bit more about the NIP, the National Infrastructure Protection Plan, and how we are trying to refresh it? Because you have led working groups of probably 135 people at a time from all over our partnership with industry and state and local owners and operators. So just a little bit more in detail, if you would, about that effort and why, in your mind, it's so important.
Absolutely. The last iteration of the NIP was put out in 2013. This is so interesting and cool to me. I mean, what I like most about my job at CISA right now, which is, specifically working to develop the update and refresh of the National Infrastructure and Protection Plan, it coincides with this year's Infrastructure Security Month, which I'm going to plug, www.cisa.gov/IS. If you want to find that on the web. It's a month every November, which really does a great job, if you look at those resources online, to highlight why I like drafting the NIP and my job so much. All of this is coming at a time of transformation for our nation and the pillars that it relies upon. It's been a really unprecedented, huge and swift move that we've seen the past year. The country had to move to as much remote work, distance learning, and telemedicine as possible. Our agency is overseeing collective security and resilience efforts for the critical infrastructure sectors in this national partnership that make those things possible that we've seen over the past year, and all of the sectors that are impacted. So that's information technology, communication, healthcare and public health, critical manufacturing, and the list just goes on and on. So this has been a really eventful year, and it's been really amazing to see how much of what we in the critical infrastructure community forecasted in terms of the emerging risk picture that we wrote into the NIP 2013. And we see how it really came into fruition over the past 7 years. So now we get to apply all of those lessons learned and put them into our update to this national doctrine, while also looking toward the future and seeing how we can partner for safety, security, and resilience of the United States with a forward look. So this is incredibly important. We're adding things like the identification and prioritization of the essential workforce, recognizing that we don't have infrastructure, these assets, systems, and functions without the people that make that happen every day. So we want to make sure that we're keeping them safe while they keep our nation running. We also are looking at how all of the awareness of disinformation, malinformation, and even online conspiracies relate to our major national security concerns like COVID-19, 5G, and election security. And we're seeing all of this societal transformation and modernization occur right now. And it really is just, the NIP is a cool document, and I have really just the coolest job for someone that's really into lifelong learning and being committed to being a public servant.
That was great. Thank you, Stephanie. And then a kind of a combined question for you, if you don't mind. Tell us what your thoughts are on recruitment into our space. What opportunities do we have or need to create? And your advice to another of your colleagues or another woman who wants to enter this space. And I think you told us what you liked best about your job. So I want to ask you that question. That was great.
Okay. So as a woman in this line of work and specific to recruiting, I think that within the broad auspice of Homeland Security and critical infrastructure security and resilience, it's an easy question for the federal government to address in terms of what challenges we face with recruiting, since we have government mandates to look at the diversity of our workforce. The federal government acknowledges strength in diversity, meaning factors that include gender. But so my specific thoughts are that recruiting women is important. It is improving, and it is really necessary to cover down on the breadth of skill that we need to address the challenges of today and tomorrow. One of the best pieces of advice that I would have for women that are interested in joining and pursuing careers is to seek mentorship. It's one of the top measures enabling us to find, keep, and retain people that get career satisfaction working here, both in the public and private sectors within the Homeland Security mission. So, if you're seeking employment, part of the workforce, be as engaged as possible. Homeland Security is a huge effort. You might not even know that the perfect niche exists for you here. You might even, through engagement and learning, discover that it's something that collectively hasn't been addressed before, so you can kind of even create your own niche. One of the best ways is joining our Women in Security Alliance, or the organizations that are underneath, like ASIS. Girl Security is a great resource for anyone first entering, especially the younger generations that are still pursuing their education. So that's a great idea. Specific to women, I've been in the workforce over the past 2 decades, and you see certain challenges that you face if you're somewhere that has fewer women on board. Sometimes the perspective of women might not have been strongly considered in the past. So, at a micro level, you see that in terms of, considering supplies that need to be stocked into a restroom. But when you take it to the really broader issue of how international and national security issues impact half of the world's population, and how we've seen through all sectors of industry and governments, that having as much variety and perspective as possible is proven to strengthen security and resilience and even peacekeeping efforts. So this is a challenge and an opportunity. Sometimes if you're the lone woman on a team or a project, it can seem like a moral obligation to speak on behalf of women as a whole, but really that is up to the individual. So there's a lot to be said for being a woman in security, and then, just even much more to be said as being part of this big collective effort that we have for security and resilience. But specific to women in recruitment, I say, come on in. The water is fine, and please join us. Every day is challenging. I mean that in the best possible way, though. Working with intention to help keep the balance of what makes America, America, our way of life and all of the freedoms, economic prosperity, and uniqueness of our country that we enjoy, balancing that with the safety, security, and health measures that are necessary is challenging. Continuing your mission forward while constantly adjusting to the will of the public, new laws, and new policies makes every day an adventure. Cut. That was it.
Perfect. You got it.
That was awesome.
Thanks for entertaining that.